My life was simple, and I was content. My husband, Ethan, and I had been married for 5 years, and we were a happy, normal couple. Our routine was cozy and comforting. I'd cook dinner, he'd help set the table, and we'd spend our evenings watching TV or chatting about our day. We both worked hard, but always made time for each other. And honestly, I thought things were just perfect. But everything changed when a new couple moved into the house next door. One sunny morning, I was in the garden watering my plants when I noticed her. She looked elegant, with long, flowing hair, and she wore a lovely floral dress. She waved at me with a warm smile, and I walked over to introduce myself. "Hi, I'm Lily," she said with a soft, friendly voice. "My husband travels a lot for work, so I'm often home alone. I hope we'll be great friends." Her words sounded sincere, and I was happy to have someone new to talk to. Over the next few weeks, we started spending more time together. Lily would come over for coffee, and we'd chat about everything. Our favorite recipes, movies, and sometimes even little things that bothered us. But soon, I started to notice something strange. One evening, Ethan came home late. He had been spending more time helping Lily with things around her house. He brushed it off, saying she needed a hand with small tasks because her husband was away. But it kept happening, and I began feeling uncomfortable. At first, I tried to ignore it, but then Lily's behavior began to change. She started wearing more stylish clothes, tight skirts, and bright red lipstick. She seemed to pay extra attention whenever Ethan was around, often laughing a little too loudly at his jokes and complimenting him on things I hadn't even noticed before. I'd see her in the morning in a new outfit or with freshly done hair, and I'd wonder, was all of this really for her husband, or was there something else going on? One day, Lily looked at me with a playful smile and said, "You're so lucky to have Ethan. He's such a good man, always helping me out." She laughed, but her eyes lingered a little too long. I didn't say much, but inside, I felt a knot forming. Then, things started to get worse. I'd cook a nice dinner for Ethan, but he'd call me last minute, saying he was helping Lily with a project or fixing something in her kitchen. One night, he didn't come home until late, and when he did, he just shrugged it off like it was no big deal. "She's just a neighbor, and she needs help," he'd say whenever I tried to bring it up, but I couldn't shake the uneasy feeling that was growing inside me. Lily continued to act more and more strangely. She got a new haircut and started wearing short skirts and fancy blouses, which seemed unusual for someone who claimed to be missing her husband all the time. She'd often talk about how her husband barely came home and how lonely she was, but I couldn't help but feel there was something she wasn't saying. One evening, as I looked out the window, I saw her standing outside looking at our house. She seemed lost in thought, and it made me feel watched. I tried to talk to Ethan about how I felt. I wanted him to see how all these little things were affecting me, but he just brushed it off with a laugh. "You're overthinking," he'd say. "Lily's just lonely. It doesn't mean anything." But deep down, I knew something wasn't right. As the days passed, Lily's presence seemed to grow even stronger in our lives. Every morning I'd wake up and see her standing outside, as if she was waiting for something or someone. She'd wave with that same friendly smile, and sometimes she'd drop by unannounced, bringing little gifts or baked goods. It was polite, but I couldn't shake the feeling that she was trying to edge her way into our lives, bit by bit. One evening, Ethan came home, later than usual again. I had spent the day preparing his favorite meal, hoping we could have a quiet evening together. But when he finally arrived, he barely looked at the food. He gave a tired sigh, explaining that he had been helping Lily with her garden. Lights in that it just took longer than expected. My heart sank. I looked at him, feeling a mix of frustration and worry. Do you even realize how much time you're spending over there? I asked, trying to keep my voice steady. Ethan laughed it off, patting my hand. You're just being silly. She's a neighbor, nothing more. But that night, I couldn't sleep. I lay awake, replaying all those small moments in my mind. The compliments, the laughter, the way she'd look at him with that strange glint in her eye. And I couldn't help but wonder, was I really just overthinking? Or was something more going on? Ethan laughed it off, patting my hand. You're just being silly. She's a neighbor, nothing more. But that night, I couldn't sleep. I lay awake, replaying all those small moments in my mind. The compliments, the laughter, the way she'd look at him with that strange glint in her eye. And I couldn't help but wonder, was I really just overthinking? Or was something more going on? As the weeks went by, Lily's behavior grew even more perplexing. She had begun dressing up every day in outfits that looked like she was going out to some fancy event, though she'd only end up in her yard or around our neighborhood. Her makeup was done perfectly, and she'd even changed her perfume to something bold and attention-grabbing. I could smell it whenever she came close, like it was meant to linger in the air. Once, as we chatted, she reached out and touched my hand, lightly saying, "You're so lucky, you know. A man like Ethan, always so considerate and kind." Not every woman has that. Her words were flattering, but they felt laced with something else, something unsettling. I couldn't tell if she was envious, admiring, or if there was a deeper motive. It was as if every compliment held a shadow of something darker. The tension I felt around her grew stronger with every passing day. Ethan's late nights became routine. Every time I asked, he'd give me a new excuse. Lily's sink is leaking, or her lawnmower broke, and she needed help. Each time, his tone was casual, but his answers were starting to sound rehearsed. When he came home, he'd be exhausted, brushing off my questions with a tired smile. One night, I decided to stay up and wait for him, hoping to talk things through calmly. Midnight passed, then 1 a.m., and finally I heard the door creak open. Ethan walked in, surprised to see me still awake. "Oh, hey," he said, a bit startled, as if he hadn't expected to see me. "Why are you still up?" I took a deep breath, trying to keep my voice steady. "Ethan, don't you think it's odd that you're spending so much time at Lily's? I mean, we barely see each other these days." He rubbed his temples, clearly tired. "Look, I'm just helping her out. Her husband is never around, and she doesn't have anyone else. Can't you see she's struggling?" I wanted to believe him, to brush it off as he did, but my instincts wouldn't let me. I looked at him closely, but he wouldn't meet my eyes. And in that moment, I felt a pang of doubt, a feeling that something, somewhere, wasn't right. The next morning, Lily stopped by with a tray of freshly baked cookies, her face beaming with excitement. "I wanted to thank Ethan for all his help," she said, her voice filled with gratitude. "He's been such a savior. I don't know what I'd do without him." I forced a smile, accepting the cookies even as my heart tightened. "Well, I'm glad he's been able to help," I replied, keeping my tone polite. But then she looked at me with a sympathetic expression, her eyes soft and sincere. "You know," she murmured, "you're really fortunate. A husband who's so dependable, so reliable. Not everyone has that." Her words lingered, her gaze intense. It was as if she was trying to plant a seed of doubt, a whisper in my mind. She'd never mentioned her husband much, and the way she spoke about Ethan felt wrong. I found myself wondering, was she genuinely grateful, or was there something more behind her compliments? In the following days, Lily's appearance became even more polished. She started wearing brighter colors, high heels, and even started jogging in the mornings, something I'd never seen her do before. I'd catch her glancing toward our house, a coy smile on her lips, as if she was waiting for Ethan to notice her. And Ethan? He seemed distracted. He'd look away when I tried to bring it up, acting as if nothing was wrong. Yet I could sense a shift in his mood. We barely spoke, and even when we did, it felt as though something invisible was pulling us apart. One evening, out of the blue, Lily invited us over for dinner. "Just a small thank you for all you've done," she said, flashing a warm smile. I didn't want to go, but Ethan seemed eager, saying it would be rude to decline. Reluctantly, I agreed, trying to keep my doubts at bay. As we sat around her table, I noticed her house was filled with delicate touches. Candles, soft music, dim lighting, all of it giving off a sense of intimacy that felt almost calculated. Lily laughed and chatted, her hand occasionally brushing Ethan's arm, her gaze lingering a second too long. I felt invisible, like a spectator in my own life, watching a scene unfold that I had no control over. That night, as I lay in bed, I couldn't stop thinking about everything. I hadn't eaten much. At dinner, too focused on watching Lily's every move, her subtle glances at Ethan, her playful laughs, the way she'd casually compliment him, all of it filled me with a sense of unease that I couldn't ignore. I turned to Ethan, wanting to say something, but he was already asleep, his face peaceful. I wanted to reach out to hold him close, but something inside me held back. My mind was racing, filled with questions I didn't dare voice out loud. The next morning, I decided to trust my instincts. When Ethan went to work, I looked out my window and saw Lily again, standing outside, talking on her phone with an intensity I hadn't seen before. I couldn't hear her words, but her expression was tense, almost worried. I watched as she paced, her hand running through her hair, frustration clear on her face. And then, just as suddenly as it began, the conversation ended. She glanced toward my house, her face unreadable, before turning and walking back inside. I watched her transform from an innocent neighbor to a figure of uncertainty, and every interaction with Ethan made my heart ache. One afternoon, I finally decided to confront Ethan again. He returned home early, a rare occurrence, and I felt a flicker of hope. We sat down at the kitchen table, and I could see he was tired, his eyes heavy from work and worry. "Ethan," I began, hesitating for a moment, "can we talk? I can't shake the feeling that something is off between us." He looked up, concern crossing his face. "What do you mean? Is this about Lily?" I told you she's just a neighbor. We're helping each other." I took a deep breath. "It feels like more than that. She spends so much time with you. You come home late, and you seem distant. It scares me." Ethan leaned back, his expression shifting from concern to defensiveness. "I'm just being a good friend. Why can't you see that?" Tears welled up in my eyes. "Because I love you and I don't want to lose you. Remember our love, our vows. We promised to communicate, to be open." Suddenly, the doorbell rang. It was Lily, dressed in yet another vibrant outfit, this time even more daring than usual. "Hey, Ethan, I just brought over some more cookies," she chirped, her voice bright. But I felt a chill run down my spine. Ethan smiled, almost too brightly. "You're the best, Lily." He stood up, walking toward her with enthusiasm, and I felt a knot tighten in my stomach. As they chatted about trivial things, I felt invisible again. It was as if I were fading into the background, lost amidst their laughter. I couldn't take it anymore. I stood up abruptly, my chair scraping against the floor, causing both of them to turn and look at me. "Ethan, can we talk? Alone?" My voice wavered, but I was determined. I needed to reclaim our space, our communication. Once in the bedroom, I turned to Ethan, my heart racing. "You don't see it, do you? The way she looks at you, the way you look at her? This isn't just friendship. It feels like a line is being crossed." He sighed, running his hand through his hair. "I didn't mean for it to be this way. I thought I was just being helpful." I stepped closer, tears spilling down my cheeks. "But what about us? We had something beautiful, Ethan. Our love was based on trust and open communication. Don't let her change that." Ethan looked into my eyes, his expression softening. "I'm sorry. I should have communicated better. I just didn't want to hurt your feelings. But I love you. You're my wife, my partner." In that moment, everything shifted. I could see the remorse in his eyes, the realization that I was right. "Then we need to set boundaries," I said, firmly. "Lily is not just a neighbor anymore. She's a complication we didn't ask for." When we returned to the living room, Lily was still there, chatting and laughing, seemingly unaware of the storm brewing. I cleared my throat, ready to stand my ground. "Lily, can we talk for a moment?" I said, my voice steady despite the flutter in my chest. She looked surprised, but nodded. "Sure. What's up?" I took a deep breath, feeling the weight of the situation. "I think we need to address the time you've been spending with Ethan. It's affecting our marriage, and I'm sure you don't want that." Lily's smile faded slightly. "Oh, come on. I was just trying to be friendly. I didn't mean to cause any problems between you two." Ethan stepped in, his voice firm yet calm. "Lily, we appreciate your kindness, but my commitment is to my wife. I can't keep helping you if it jeopardizes our relationship." Lily's expression shifted, and I could see a flicker of understanding in her eyes. I didn't realize it was that serious. "I'm sorry if I overstepped." With that, Lily backed away, and we exchanged a few more words before she finally left. The tension in the room lifted slightly, and I turned to Ethan, relief flooding over me. "Thank you for standing by me," I said softly, my heart full of hope. "Let's remember what we have and communicate better. Our love is worth fighting for." Ethan took my hands in his, squeezing gently. "I love you. I'm sorry for not seeing it sooner. You're the only one for me, and I don't want to lose what we have." In that moment, I felt a weight lift off my shoulders. We were back on solid ground, and the love we had for each other became clearer than ever. As weeks passed, things returned to normal. Lily eventually moved away, her husband finally coming home for good. Ethan and I focused on our relationship, rebuilding the foundation that had been shaken. One evening, as we sat together on the couch, I turned to Ethan and said, "You know, I think this whole experience taught us a lot about communication and trust. We need to keep reminding each other how much we mean to each other." Ethan smiled, pulling me close. "Absolutely. Our love story is just beginning, and I want to write every chapter with you." We shared a soft kiss, the warmth of our love enveloping us. In that moment, I knew we had weathered the storm together, stronger than before, and ready to embrace whatever came next.